We're live. Phil, you gonna be my production manager next year?
Your production manager.
I think we can make some money, man. I talked to the guy at KDYA. Jeff talked me out of doing another radio show, which was asinine for me to try to do. All right. Hello. There I go with the echo.
I'm down.
All right. Hello out there in YouTube land and on Facebook land and on any land. We're just glad to be with you here today. We welcome you to another segment of Momentum, a Stewardship Idea. Well, we are happy. This is the month of December. We're well into getting going on some vaccines for the rest of the world. And we just want to talk about some happy stuff today. And we got a great show lined up for you today. And as well, I am Salt, and salt is no good without pepper. Pepper, say hello to us today. Jeffrey Healy, you guys, Elder Healy. What's going on there, Jeff?
Hey, I just got 2 words, and I want Phil to follow up with the next 2 words. My 2 words are go Navy.
Mine would be beat Army. Beat Army.
You got to finish that off.
No, you got to go beat Army.
Beat Army.
You got to beat the Army, right?
We could just say that for the next hour.
Yeah, and then carry on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So look, we don't have anybody. Well, I didn't go to Army. I didn't go to Navy either. However, just in case, we want to know that we're not partial or anything on the show, right? So there is.
We both got into West Point, but we sought better.
Yeah. You sought better, right? Okay, so there you go. Army, Navy.
Hey, Curtis.
It's gonna be a great game tomorrow.
On a joking matter, the one thing that all West Point and Annapolis grads have in common is they all could have gone to West Point. but in reality, we are brothers and sisters with the graduates from this other school, this lesser school. We are brothers and sisters. We lay down their lives for us. We do it for them. One day a year.
Right, yeah.
One day a year we are...
One day a year. You just like...
Yeah.
Rawr.
So tomorrow is the day that we frankly don't really like those guys and girls.
Hey, I think that's all fair in love and war. How about that?
Yeah.
So why don't you guys talk about what the game meant to you all now? Jeff, you're elder statesman, so we'll save you for last. Because we definitely want to hear about the stories when, what was it like playing football in leather hats? Trying to get my big brother on that, but you got a big brother, right, Phil? It's like maybe not.
No, I don't.
No, hey man, well, you see how Jeff treats us, man. All the time, but like we're like permanent underclassmen, right? But we get it. So give our listening audience some stories of your time during the Navy. It must have been like an electric atmosphere, man. I mean, we see it on TV, and it's just like pandemonium.
Phil, you're first.
Okay, I thought he was giving it to the elder first.
No, I was giving him the beat up privileges. That's why I was saying he always beating us up. You know how big brothers are, right? That's why I had to poke one in with the leather helmet, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Got it. Yeah, okay. I got it. Well, I mean, Army Navy for me has a long history because I'm from Philly, and I grew up with the Army Navy game. It's Franklin Field and the Veterans Stadium. Most Army Navy games are in Philadelphia. It's sad that we actually have to go all the way up to Hell on the Hudson this year, but we'll go wherever we need to go to whoop on some Army mule. But seriously, yeah, it's always been a thing because I have family members from both in the Army and the Navy and some Marines and the game was always a Philadelphia tradition before it was a Navy tradition. And then going to the Naval Academy, it's it's the game, right? And it's a big deal for you. You say, I don't know how many times you say go Navy beat Army in your first year at the Naval Academy, but it's like I said it more than my name. I tell you that for sure, right? I probably said it more than the word I. That's probably pretty fair as well. And it's a sweet rivalry. It's a cool game. It's a great story. And when I first knew about it, I didn't realize when it was played, the significance of it, and all that. I just was kind of ignorant to it as a young cat. But you think about the fact that we're usually around. It's usually around. Remember, it's a Pearl Harbor weekend. It's usually separated from all other college football because there's usually no other games going on at that time, and nationally televised, and people always talk about the experiences they have at the academy, and externally it's impressive, but internally it's just an intense week of fun and preparation, and we're like razzing each other and doing goofy things. And it's Spirit Week is a special time at the Naval Academy, the week before the Army Navy football game. And some people do we did some crazy things. We put some gas on Army, and everybody around the fleet, the people do videos and spirit spots, and they're all in good nature, and they're all in good spirit, but they're also that nonstop competitive way that we've got to. So it's a really special thing.
You're muted, Curtis.
I'm doing the dum again, y'all. I heard you the other day talk about these Army mules. Are they like specially bred to be that big? I mean, Clydesdales are like, I've seen them. They're like humongous horses. Why are Army mules so big?
Because they carry so much stuff in their rear end, they got to be big.
No, I was going to make a really dark comment, but I like a lot of people from the Army, so I will not. But yes, their mules got to carry some heavy duty stuff. I mean, they those caissons were not light back in the day, right? And the horses were just they couldn't work as much as the mule, right? So those mules are pretty sturdy. Yes, I'll never forget the day that the mules, that a couple of my classmates decided to bring those Army mules into Tecumseh Court. I have a picture somewhere of that, where we the clandestine operation where we stole all four of the Army mules. That was pretty sweet.
Really, you stole it and nobody got hurt?
There were some people at West Point who got roughed up a little bit. They kind of the Navy Spec War community kind of rolled up and took down the stables. They kind of roughed up some of the guards and bound them up a little bit, and then did some misdirection tactics to avoid the state police and the highway patrol and all that sort of stuff, and brought those mules all the way down from West Point to Annapolis. It was good. We didn't harm the mules. Were not harmed. There were there was nothing burned into the sides of them or anything. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Army's slacking or anything, but that's a black mark on them. And we won the game that year too.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Brother Healy.
Well, thanks. When Phil gave a little knowing chuckle in the middle of there, you knew there was some stuff that he wasn't going to talk about. So I was very, very happy to hear that chuckle. When we were plebes, when we were freshmen, probably the first thing you learned was go Navy beat Army. When you chopped down the halls, you ran down the halls. The academies, first thing they do is they take away all what you thought were your rights, and then you have to earn them back as privileges. Mm-hmm. So we ran down the halls in Bancroft Hall in the dormitory. You didn't round a corner, you squared every corner. When you got there, chop, boom. And as you squared, you either say, go Navy, sir, or beat Army, sir, every time. I lived on the 4th deck, which was the 5th floor. not that I remember, it was 122 steps up. So each square, each time you came up, you had 4 go Navy beat Armies. So 16 up, 16 down, just to get going. You couldn't walk on a curved sidewalk as a plebe. You had to walk the straight sidewalk. So if, in our case, when we beat Army, those last couple of weeks, then after the game before Christmas break, now it's called winter break, you got to carry on. You got to live like what we thought was a real human being. So it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. Two things I'll tell. When we were there, you would bet a bathrobe. We had these beautiful Navy bathrobes, and Army had beautiful bathrobes that you'd wear after you took a shower or whatever. We would bet, if you're willing to bet on the game, and there was somebody on the other side that also bet, you got a bathrobe from Army if we beat Army, or they got a Navy bathrobe if they beat us. So my freshman year, we had 4,400 midshipmen at the academy, and there were 4,400 cadets at West Point. We bet, I think, around 4,200 guys bet. There were less than 200 cadets bet. And they're not dumb guys. We beat them 51-0. So I didn't get a bathrobe that year. The next year, we had about 4,200 people bet. They had about 200. Again, pretty smart guys. We beat them 19-0. The next year, we had about 4,200 guys bet. They had about 300 bet. They weren't quite as smart then. We beat them 30-6. The next year, as a senior, well, I love that picture. The next year, as a senior, of course, we all bet again. And there were about 500 cadets that bet. We beat them 38-10. I got a bathrobe from West Point.
Okay.
So that's one story. The second story that's sort of, it's a little dark, but fun.
A little?
We had a number of Army officers that were on a program where they'd come and teach some classes. We had some naval officers up in West Point, the same thing. During the Spirit Week that Phil talked about, we went en masse to this Army officer's home on the brigade, in the yard, we call it, the academy grounds. He comes out there, we're all singing Navy fight songs. He's there with his family. It's so cool. The whole group's separating him and in the street where his car was parked. Well, the brigade commander, the #1 midshipman, steps on top of the hood of his car with a sledgehammer, puts a hammer through his front windshield.
Okay.
And over the next 5 minutes, he couldn't get through the crowd. His car was beaten to a pulp. So he's just going, oh my God, I can't believe he did this. Well, then the brigade commander goes up to him, calms him down. And this was in the day when you could get a Corvette for about $5,000. So a nice car was $2,500 or whatever. Everybody at the academy was privy of this, had all chipped in and gave $1 for this. He got $4,400 for having to go through those couple of minutes. So he got a much nicer car than he had before.
Okay. Wow. That is just panic. That's like panic mode, man.
Oh yeah.
They'll come back and like, my car.
He's like, I can't believe these midshipmen beat up my car.
Like, dude, what's going on? Man, I like these jerseys though. So this is the game jersey for tomorrow. It's pretty nice. And I want to tell you that if I was in Vegas and if I was going to bet on this game, I will probably put my money on Army this year.
Would you take the 7?
The 7.
7 points is the spread.
Will I take the spread? I have to look at their defenses a little bit more. Well, I don't know. It's like, I mean, records could be misleading. I mean, it could be, Army's like 7-2, Navy's 3-6.
Yeah.
But if Navy's been losing like 45-30 and been losing 52-45, right? Like that. I don't know. So I have to look at the defense, man.
Well, if you look at that jersey on the Navy jersey, the shoulders are that is in honor of the John Paul Jones crypt that's beneath the chapel at the Naval Academy, where one of the fathers of the Navy, John Paul Jones, is buried.
Wow.
So that's the color of the stone in which
Okay.
he hides. That's the significance of that of those shoulder pads and the helmet.
And the helmet, yeah. And then I see the stripes on there, and I see Under Armour, and Army's jerseys look rather placid compared to the Navy's. I mean, I see the khaki green and stuff look kind of plain, you know?
Well, they do like to get down in the dirt.
Well, they've been getting down in the dirt this year. I don't know if they're ranked.
So Curtis, about 18, 19 years ago, the series was Army had won 49 times, Navy had won 46 times, and there had been 8 ties, something like that. And Army came up with this great ad campaign, the Race to 50. You know, they're at 49, we're at 46. Boy, that's a tough bet to make. You know, we're going to win 1 before you win 4. Not a real good idea. We won the next 14.
Oh, wow.
Now, near the end of that streak, though, and that's very unusual to have a streak like that. You know, we won all 4 when I was there. There have been a couple like that until this streak. There was a midshipman from the Naval Academy who perished in a car wreck. It was tragic. So the entire Navy team with Coach Niamatololo went to the funeral. There were 3 other people at the funeral that were unannounced. 2 young men and a middle-aged fellow. They went up to the family, gave their respects, and left. They called no attention to themselves. Found out later it was Coach Munkin, the Army coach, and the captains of the Army football team.
Wow.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it says here that this is the first time it will be played at West Point for the first time since 1943.
Absolutely. Now, do you know why the Navy mascot's a goat?
No, but look, before you say that, I just want everybody to know that I saw a picture of this goat, right? It was an old picture, like 1924. It was like, I thought this goat was like a prop for the Exorcist movie or the Omen or something. And I was like, do they actually does God make ghosts like that anymore? The horns, brother, was like satanic. That beard was like Beelzebubic, and those eyes were just terrifying. I was like, I'm losing this game, period. I don't even care. The goat done goated me. So tell me the story about the Navy goat. Whoever stole that goat has some guts.
Well, it was 1894 or something. Phil probably knows the number better than I do. The first Army-Navy game was played up at West Point, and the midshipmen that went up there, we didn't have a mascot. So they stole a goat out of an Army officer's yard and took that as their mascot. That was how the goat became the Navy mascot. It was an Army goat.
Is that like a misdemeanor or something?
Not Army-Navy, it isn't.
Man, above the law, man. Above the law. All right. So we got the Army-Navy in the game going on. We have the you with us, Phil?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
here. But you was posing for a second, man. You was like
styling, profiling. Sometimes man's gotta, do his thing.
I posed it up, huh? Yeah, I done posed way too much in my lifetime. I bet you that much. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was military, and I'll just say that one of the things that I deal with, as a pastor, it's just trying to get people to understand, empirical symbols when they see them, and to help them to understand how deeply ingrained this militarism is, in our culture and in our society. As a matter of fact, I saw a senator in the White House was giving a speech, and behind him there was a statue of a Roman centurion, right? So again, it just shows you how deeply ingrained militarism is in the imperialistic, platform. Unfortunately, sometimes you have more people at the bottom than you do at the top. So, Jeff, you had an interesting suggestion about the military being governed by the people. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Thanks. And for those of you that don't have the pleasure that I have, Curtis, Phil, and I talked about this for over an hour the other day, and it was just a fascinating topic for me to review for today. I went back to some books that I've read, so I want to sort of pull those as something to refer to. One is Nassim Taleb's recent book, Skin in the Game. Another is Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Next book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded.
Yeah.
Went back and looked at Morris Janowitz's book, 1960, The Professional Soldier, a social and political portrait, and then Soldier in the State by Samuelson that came out in 57.
Okay.
All of them, well, they point to different things. The thing that's most critical to me is that the military, and Phil and I want to hear Phil's comments on this. The oath that we took as officers was to support and defend the Constitution. It's not to obey the orders of the president. That's in the enlisted oath. It has to be there for good order and discipline. We are obligated as commissioned officers in the U.S. Armed Forces to have our first allegiance, second allegiance, third allegiance, fourth allegiance, every allegiance to the people of the United States. That's what we're there for. Bill?
Yeah, I would just say I totally agree. People got to understand that there's a difference. There are a lot of people who think that people in the military are these automatons that they see in these movies that paint people out to be somehow less intelligent than some people than their average bear. Let's put it that way. But nothing's farthest from the truth. In every institution that I've worked in, every academic environment I've been in, there's been no concentration of quality people like those I've found coming out of the service academies. Like none. Period. Right? We've been around some of the best institutions that exist in the country, maybe even the world. They're incredibly high quality people. If you think about the institution of the United States military and the military officer corps, and you think about the things that have been accomplished, it's quite incredible. It's if you think about the fact that if you go to an aircraft carrier of 5,000 people, and that the average age on that is under 25, and that the commanding officer is often under 45, and that you have over 100 aircraft and the serious capacity to inflict the will of the United States, and there are such a minimal number of mishaps and problems and challenges. You see a system that's very effective in what it does, and people who do this, who become these great leaders in the military, and in the words of the mission of the United States Naval Academy at the end, to attain the highest ideals of command, citizenship, and government. So I think people have a misguided understanding of what this is about, what the military officer is supposed to do, what command by negation and what service leadership are all about, and that we have an obligation to make sure that people really understand that, and that that they understand what it means to support and defend the Constitution, right? What it means to stand up and say no to an unlawful order, and those things go on and on and on.
Curtis, you wear
I put this up behind me on purpose. Say it again.
Curtis, you're wearing a Harvard sweatshirt right now, and I completely honor that. I pulled up a couple statistics before today. At Princeton, one of your Ivy League competitors, in World War II, 335 Princeton graduates died wearing the uniform. In Vietnam, 24 died wearing the uniform. In the Afghan-Iraq conflict, 0 have died. Harvard, 899 Harvard students actually fought in the Revolutionary War. 21 of them died. Over 27,000 Harvard students and faculty served in World War II. 697 of them died. Vietnam, 22. I couldn't find any numbers for the Afghan-Iraqi war that were very discomforting to me. A couple other points, and then we can really discuss it. In 2004, seven members of Congress, just seven members of Congress had children in the military. Vietnam, 27 had children in the military. 27 Congress people, one senator, and Al Gore's father was in the Senate. Today, of the 435 members of the House of Representatives, 77 have served in the military, and that breaks out 55 Republican, 22 Democrat. In the Senate, 19 have served in the military, 11 Republican, 8 Democrat. So 17% of the House have served, 19% of the Senate have served. That's part of the problem. For me, the bigger problem is the misrepresentation of the nation in the armed forces. The fact that the bulk of the military, a disproportionate amount of the military, is made up of Black and brown men and women. It's a misrepresentation from the total percentage of the country. It comes from very small sections of the country, so that our Congress people today, pardon me, but they don't have skin in the game. There's not a political risk, and there's not a familial risk to order this incredible volunteer armed forces to go do stuff. These army guys, these Navy men and women, Army men and women, all of these are incredibly good at what they do. So I don't think our Congress people really, I'm being very harsh here, I don't think they really apply the same set of standards as they did if they had sons and daughters at risk. My opinion.
I would agree with that, but you're driving a proposition, right? And the proposition that you're driving sounds like, people who want to run for public office might need to spend more time, in service in terms of being a guardian of this country. Are you driving that proposition?
I think Phil's got an even better idea.
Yeah.
I heard Phil's idea. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I'm glad that Jeff brought up the numbers. He's always the man with the numbers. But I'm actually surprised that they are so high, because I've done the numbers on the numbers of veterans and such, and we're just a shrinking the percentage of the population, and the number of people who have family members who serve, the number of people who have actually served, the number of people who know anything about military service and the significance of the impact and the extent of American foreign policy in a visceral way is so small and so detached that people call small inconveniences to the American population trifling. I mean, if you look at 2020, it's been a challenging year. It's the very first time, at least since 1945, that all of America was touched by a crisis at the same time. And our response wasn't to band together. Our response wasn't to, our response was, most of the people's response was divisive and self-interested. If you think about the difference between December 7th, 1941, December 8th, 1941, and the day after we had some serious, and March 8th, 2020, right? What's the big difference? Well, people were talking about, what can I do to defend the country? People were walking down to sign up to go to war. People were volunteering to when the German U-boats a couple years later started coming across and sinking things off the coast, people participated in blackout. People participated in rationing. People participated in different things to make sure that the good of the nation moved forward, and the good of the nation and its people moved forward. And our response today is something quite drastic. So I think we are severely divorced from the concept of service and community over self, and over the ethos that calls people to serve.
And I would actually argue that I'm not going to go all the way to extreme to Robert Heinlein's world that you need to serve in the military to be a citizen. But I think if I were elected president tomorrow, one of the things I would do is institute a national year of service, just like we had the draft.
Mhm.
Reinstitute the draft. You can serve any way you want, right? Job Corps, Peace Corps, Civic Corps, Marine Corps. You can serve any way you choose and any way that infrastructure has. Well, you need to leave home and go across the country and go to a different part of the world and understand how Americans have hit the lottery just to be born in America, the lowest of the low in America. We've hit the lottery compared to so many other billions of people on the planet who don't have the opportunities that we have just by the luck of our birth, and that will understand what real risk is, what real tyranny is, what real poverty is, and that we see in the world, and the impact of strife and of war
Mhm.
and of injustice in such ways. We have our own problems for sure. We are far from a utopia, but we have been to different parts of the world where those challenges are so much more raw, and we need to understand that and hold ourselves up to that, not only just in the ethos of our country and the founding of our nation and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, but in those things that we say that drive our values from our religion. If America is a Christian nation, she needs to show it and she needs to act it. So
Mhm.
I think there's a whole lot of there's a whole lot there to get unraveled in this, but it is clearly, I think, something that a lot of veterans really understand, and that I think the officer and the senior NCOs really understand from the perspective of the mantle of leadership and the responsibility of leading and taking care of those who are under your command.
Mhm.
Curtis, two things that I want to bring up that cause me as a veteran, it really is, it gnaws at me, and I appreciate the sentiment behind, but the impact of it is pretty poor, and that is, I love it when somebody says thank you for your service. Unfortunately, they say it as the end of the conversation, not as the beginning of the conversation. They want to just say thank you for your
Mhm.
service. Now they've done it. The second thing that's a little more insidious, I watch, these YouTube things. Here comes the dad that snuck home early, and they bring him to throw out the first pitch, or the brother who gets to attend his sister's graduation. That assuages the responsibility of the rest of the public by going, oh yeah, see, we cheered. They have no skin in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
They're assuaged by someone else's actions.
Mhm.
I add to that one more too, because I've gotten into this with people when we talk about the national anthem protest and the NFL salute to service and all that stuff. And honestly, I don't believe it's genuine, and I don't
Mhm.
believe that those sports events rate flyovers from military aircraft. And I don't believe that we. I want people to really walk the walk in terms of thank you for your service. Don't thank me for my service. Help somebody. Talk to somebody who's there. Don't thank me for your service. Ask a family member who's in the military what their mother, father, uncle, brother, sister, cousin did, right? Because
Mhm.
I talk to people all the time who have absolutely no idea what people do when they put on the uniform and leave. They have no idea what their family members or friends did in the service, or what they saw or what they experienced. And they say, oh, well, he never talks about it or this or that or the other. I'm like, you know, people can it doesn't take long to take the effort to get an understanding. We had a conversation about the Secretary of Defense and whether or not that, who should be chosen and
Mhm.
why and all that sort of stuff. It took me all of 5 minutes to research the origin of the Secretary of Defense, the creation of the Department of Defense, who all those folks were, and why certain selections really, really matter, right? Doesn't take long to take the effort to actually understand a little bit more about these people and what this is about and what this really means. And the chest thumping rah rah and wearing the flag on your hat or your shirt or your shorts That's not patriotism. That's not thanking for me for my service. That's not trying to understand why people do what they do, and why it matters. If you can't tell me, if you're a grown adult and you can't tell me the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, then I don't think you care much about my service.
Hmm.
And
Let me, yeah, go ahead.
don't go ahead. I just think I, I think if we're talking about these things seriously, and we're talking about these things in the way that we really want them to matter, then we really need to dig into them and kind of rip the cover off some of the gentle veneer.
Okay, that's fair. And there is a building on Harvard's campus in Harvard Yard that was used in 1868 to house Union wounded soldiers. So I think that you know, listen, I'm not glorifying anything that that is that has at its end game innocent blood that gets spilled on the ground. I want to ask you this because you talk about the attitudes of people when it comes to the war and wars and what have you, right? Men are at conflict, humanity is at conflict. So when you have conflict, you're going to have discussions, and sometimes those discussions don't de-escalate, they escalate. Let's talk about Vietnam in the public conscious, right? I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1961, right? At the age of 7, 1968, there was so much going on in America. Robert Kennedy was assassinated. King got assassinated. The 60s were a turbulent year for a turbulent decade for America, right? And so then you start hearing about conscientious objectors. And the reality is that, do you all think that Vietnam was a war that we should have avoided? And since we did not avoid it, do you think that the military image suffered because of what happened in Vietnam?
Well, I'll go first if I could. There's a wonderful book that I read a number of years ago called Generations. And it talks about 4 generational types that have repeated themselves through the history of the United States. The group, and each generation has had their own president, except for one generation. And I'm going to get to that real quickly. So there was FDR was in charge of the United States when World War II started. Some people might say that he knew it was going to happen, that he was duplicitous. I don't really care about that. All I know is that FDR was this similar generation as baby boomers. His parents had been were part of the group that fought the Civil War. They had said to their children, "We don't want uniforms. We're going to do less and less of that. We've seen the cost of war." So they then came through their lives. A little bit later was World War I, but as little kids, they didn't see it. By the time they took office, they wanted to have their war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're the generation that came after the greatest generation, that group that was born from about 25 to 41. They had aunts and uncles, older brothers, whatever, that fought in the war. They didn't. They were the recipients of the good work that others did for them. That generation never had its own president. It was immediately followed after, so JFK, and I guess it was all the way up until and including the first President Bush. They were all the great generation or before. Then we had President Clinton come in, who was a baby boomer, followed by W, who was a baby boomer, followed by probably our greatest president ever. And then this other one. But you've got to realize that from a harsh perspective, that Clinton and Bush, they wanted to have their war. I think that there was a little bit of the same psychology that went on there. I'm probably being a little bit harsh on this, but you've got to look at what the generation went through in their formative years to compare a 50-year-old today with a 50-year-old 40 years ago doesn't really matter because they came through a completely different process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I understand. And I also
Are
understand
you?
that as a civilian, right? When I look at the history of war, I get what you're saying, Healy, right? However, let's be clear. Let's not escape this Vietnam discussion. All
Oh,
right. It's like
yeah.
the virtue of World War II is clear. All right. You had Hitler, you had the Jewish nation, right? You had Mussolini, you had the axis of evil, the whole 9 yards, right? The Korean War, still don't understand that one, right? Vietnam, definitely don't understand that. And what I'm saying is to a point that Phil made, right? Phil was like, well, I just think that, people should just, serve. It should just be, just go do it. However, if you give people a choice, and if, you put on the screen like, okay, and they go like, okay, well, what was that one all about? Boom. Now, how can you begin to rebuild that image where it's clear? It's still going to be tainted with empiricism, right? But I do, I see a conflict of interest
Well, I
right
mean,
there.
let's add a little bit to that, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the growth of the fascist nations, regimes, and empires in the 1940s that was pitting one philosophy against another philosophy, or actually one philosophy against the world, right?
Mhm.
The Nazi theory of dominance, the Japanese theory of dominance, that way say we're going to dominate the world. And it was like you're gonna push back or you're gonna lose because they chose that is a very clear threat, right? And
Mhm.
came close for a number of reasons to becoming real, right? And one of them is because of American apathy and disengagement from the global conflict. And by whatever miracle, we won the battle of the Brits won the battle of Britain, right?
Mhm.
And some of that's technology. Actually, you read the book called Loon Shots. They talk about technology's involvement in that, science and engineering. We're talking about radar. We're talking about sonar. We're talking about certain sort of technologies that allowed an under-equipped Britain and an underprepared U.S. to accelerate and beat a Nazi regime that overextended itself. Um, but I mean, that's a very, very different story than the post-war, Cold War differences of opinion between Russia and the U.S. that led to the Cold War up and through the Reagan administration, right through the 80s. So, I mean, Korea, if you believe the politics, the high level politics, Korea and Vietnam
Mhm.
saying we want to stop the aggression of communism and create capitalism, whether it's economic or political power, those are to me those are proxy wars, right? That you fight
Mhm.
for both of those things. And yes, we do hear about guys who said they wanted their war. It's a strange dichotomy, right? Because you are trained to do something that you hope to never be able to do. In every environment of the military that I was in, you're generally trained for all sorts of things you don't want to be able to do. I didn't want to. I didn't want to defend myself against uh, chemical, biological, radiological hazards, but I went to school for it. I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to fight fires on ships, but I sure went to school for it. I didn't want to deploy nuclear weapons or fire long range missiles or put Marines ashore or take over small countries, but we were sure prepared for it, and on and on and on and on. Right at a macro level, it reminds me of one of my company officers at the Naval Academy. He was the oldest major in the Marine Corps at the time because he was a Vietnam era lieutenant, first lieutenant,
Mhm.
who got frustrated with the Army, left the Army, and came back another time and joined the Marine Corps to be an officer. And when the first Gulf War would break out, he was stuck at the Naval Academy where he wanted to be in combat because he prepared his
Mhm.
whole career for the ability to not have to prove that he could do it, but given the opportunity to prove it, he wanted the opportunity to be proven by fire, trial by combat, prove that we had the ability to kick ass and exercise those demons of the inconclusive Korean conflict and a loss in Vietnam. Right now, that's the warrior ethos, right? And that was it's part of a mentality. That's the duplicity of it, right? Because nobody knows better the horrors of what's happened in Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, Haiti, name the place. Nobody knows better than the guys who were there, right? You know, you can.
Right.
You want to know what happened in Haiti? Well, talk about my plebe roommate who invaded it and got ambushed in some square. You want to talk about what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan? I'll talk to people who've been in it everywhere, right? Because we know people who've been in everything for our generational lifespan. Every conflict, we know them personally, right? Friend of a friend. We've lost some, we've kept some. We know some who've been through it all. So nobody knows more the cost personally to us, to our community, to our families, and to those people who we meet on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
And you want to stand up and fight, but you also want to make sure people that the civilians who are supposed to be in control and who are supposed to respect the significance and the severity and the sanctity of the use of force, that they curb that with prudent understanding, awareness, and action.
I want to bring up a couple of things here, and one is self-serving. I was just thinking about watching television back, in the old days when we had the news. You'd see a split screen with 3 or 4 different people on it, and they would all keep talking and yelling until finally one person shut up. It's so incredibly it warms my heart to be on a call with the two of you where we all respect the other person's ability to talk. And when they start talking, we don't raise our hand and cut in for it. So,
are you talking about the presidential debate?
I'm talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But one of the things that, Phil, I don't know if I told you, when I took the history of sea power at Navy, my instructor was E.B. Potter, who wrote the book. He and Chester Nimitz wrote the book that we studied. And part of that book, Curtis, I'm going to get to Vietnam real quickly here. Part of that book, the history of sea power, was how technology inventions changed sea power, how they changed naval warfare, sail, a turret rather than a fixed guns, etc. Now, each one, then radar, as Phil told us about, sonar, things of that sort. There was an element that was brought into the Vietnamese War that we don't talk about much, and the impact that this technology had on the war. You know what it was?
No.
Television.
It brought it to your living room. Was that the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The horrors of war were brought to the people that they had never seen it before.
Yeah. Yeah. Now break that down.
And the enemy knew how to use that weapon better than we did.
What do you think that did to people, though, Jeff? It's like, I've heard, right? Okay, so look, I've never been to a war over there. The only war I've been to has been the ones like in East Oakland, which can be just as brutal, right? I'm talking about PTSD in the neighborhood, right? Don't you think that there's only so much that a mind is supposed to take when it comes to that, and then at some point you reach a breaking point? How do we, I guess, debrief ourselves, from that kind of thing? And my heart goes out to veterans. I promise you, my heart goes out to veterans, right? I hope we got time to talk about that. We've got 9 minutes left. All right, golly, man, this got to be part 1. But, okay, I'm sorry, I got off. But no, just get to it real quick.
Okay, so two things come to mind. One is, and Phil was talking about his roommate. I had a guy right down the hall from me, Mike Oler, 6th Company, class of 77, went through plebe summer together, everything. I had served my time. I was done. I was at Merrill Lynch going through training, was in New York City, staying in the Roosevelt Hotel, doing my homework that night for my class the next day as we're talking about discounted cash flow, whatever it was. And all of a sudden up on the screen pops a picture of Mike Oler, who had just been killed by a sniper in Lebanon. It was a guy that lived right down the hall from me. A couple of weeks later, a guy named Jim Search, Navy guy, been at my house for an Army Navy game party the year before. He was in the compound in Beirut when the bomber came in and did it. We hate war.
Yeah.
We have to inculcate in those young Marines how great it is to fight, because it is against human nature to take another human's life. There is a moral injury. There's PTSD, and a subset of PTSD is the moral injury, the knowledge that you just took a life away. The Japanese have a practice when a soldier returns from their time, the village surrounds them and they thank them for his service, and they say, it's time to take off your uniform and we welcome you back.
Yeah.
We got spit upon walking down Union Street in 1974 in my midshipman uniform.
Wow. And that's okay. So that's the Vietnam backlash. Let me just share this real quick. This is James Baldwin, right? And I read it last night. Muhammad Ali, formerly Cassius Clay, is a vivid example of what can happen to a Black man who obeys the American injunction, be true to your faith. But his press has been so misleading that he is also an unwieldy and intimidating example. Muhammad Ali is one of the best of the bad niggers and has been publicly hanged like one. All of that stemmed from him taking the initiative to say, I'm not going to fight your war. How do we handle that?
What do you mean?
I mean, you have to respect. I mean, what Baldwin was saying was that he respectfully stated his opinion.
Sure.
What he got in return, right, was basically a raping from the American construct of democracy.
Sure. I respect every man that you mentioned in that piece, right? And I respond to it this way. They had the courage to stand up and speak to their convictions and take responsibility for whatever happened. And in that regard, I totally respect them. They didn't push their values on anybody. They didn't force anybody to do anything. They didn't infringe on anybody else's rights. Ali went to jail. Ali gave up his titles. Ali spoke his truth. And I totally respect that for anyone who does that, right? For folks who will tell you that he did something wrong, I would say I would go ask them what happened to their family in Vietnam. And I tell people this anytime that they ask. Every single living man in my family, my mother's side, my father's side, of Vietnam era age, every single one was drafted to Vietnam. Their entire neighborhoods were depleted and sent to Vietnam, and we were represented disproportionately in those places. While the current president of the United States talked about his bone spurs and didn't even show up, right? And the previous Bush had some sort of other thing that prevented him from being available. So I call hypocrisy on people who will talk about how folks should stand up and line up and defend America, where they're not willing to put their own skin in the game or recognize the fact that that's part of their own history. I'll double down on that in the fact and say, previous to and after, every living generation of my family of men have volunteered to serve this country. But we've come back to second-class citizenship for most of that time. And it's only been reiterated, shown to us again in some of the things that we've seen recently. So, I mean, I would just call those people to say, there are some things that we need to do right now, like looking ourselves in the face and look at ourselves in the mirror and being honest with ourselves. And while we have made a whole lot of changes, while things have moved a whole lot forward, I still remember being at the Naval Academy and wondering why people said certain things or did certain things when women stepped up to the mic. I still remember the discussions I had with my other plebe summer roommate from North Carolina, who was talking about how black men dating white women or vice versa was just wrong and immoral, but he couldn't explain why, but it just wasn't. And the other others talking about how the military wasn't a place for social experiments when it came to people who were also the other, like women or gays, right? So we had dealt with that, still have to deal with that, and still have some who haven't come around to everybody having that equality under law and under God, right? To the First Amendment, to those statements in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, right? Some people still that believe and act like it only applies to white men, and we have to address that, and we can't sweep under the rug the history about it, because it's not ancient history. It is living history that affects how I came up, how you came up, how Jeff came up, and how we try and guide the next generation forward. I'll end with this. I have the great honor of interviewing candidates for the Naval Academy for nomination for Senator Feinstein. I've done it for now 7 years, and I do it. My partner for the last 3 years is a retired Marine Corps 3-star general, right? And he's old guard, white Marine, whichever, but we've had real conversations. In the first year, we had differences. I saw how we both had different perception biases about different candidates, whether they were men or women, whether they're black or brown or this or that. We had different biases about them because of where we're from and what we've seen. My experiences with women and gays in uniform, and that was just completely alien to him. He had no idea about that world. But in our conversation, we've come together to understand each other's points of view and elevate the evaluation criteria and the consistency with which we review those future leaders to a way that warmed my heart, right? We've given to each other and guided to each other. That stuff needs to continue to happen, and it's a great opportunity.
That's fantastic. Healy, we got 60 seconds.
I'm going to ask, well, one thing I want to address quickly, and I apologize for slamming you on this, Phil. I think that your signature there is Navy's best class. I was class of 77. We like to think that the class of 80 was the best class because that was the class we trained.
Well, I put it on there just to see if you would pick up on it. We always say that. So I actually think they stopped saying it because we have all these little pranks at the Naval Academy. One of you walk through and you yelled, "Who's the best class?" And they would say their number or whatever. Last time I rolled through, I yelled, "Who's the best class?" They looked at me like I had 3 heads. So some traditions stick around and some traditions don't. But we always said, this class because we trained you, the class behind us because we trained you. And if I said that and they said 2021, sir, I'd say that's right, because we train the class, right? Because it's not about us. We're the best is yet to come.
That's fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that we've had the best of the best on this show today. And if you think that these guys are like this cat behind me, Gomer Pyle, you are wrong. Jeffrey Healy, I've learned so much from him in the investment banking world. He is a veteran, not only of the Navy, but he's also a veteran of the investment banking world. And he's still leading the cause in areas of higher finance. And I look to learn more from him from that. And as well as my man, Phil, Phil Dillard, all right, Naval Academy graduate. Also, what we don't talk about enough is his MBA from the University of Chicago. So what you're seeing today is what I consider the creme de la creme of what the military can do with a great mind. So ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much. We want to continue this discussion again. What do you think, guys?
Beat Army.
Go Navy.
Dude, I'll be glad when this game is over with. So I can come back and say,
sooner or later, we might say something about the Air Force.
Air Force. Oh my God. You gotta find somebody from the Air Force. Get them on this discussion. Listen, guys, I love you. Have a great weekend. As usual, very lively, vivid, and relevant discussion. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on Momentum, a stewardship idea. Have a great weekend and be safe.
Peace.
Carry on.